Teamsters! And teachers and steel workers and building tradespeople in Ohio's organized labor, thank you, thank you. Nobody has fought in the labor movement in Washington or nationally. Nobody's fought for fair trade like Jim Hoffa. And what he's done, standing up on NAFTA, standing up on CAFTA, standing up to make these trade agreements better, standing up to take on China. Nobody's done it like Hoffa. Nobody's done it like the Teamsters. So thank you so very, very much for that. Now, behind me on this stage, Congresswoman Capter, Congresswoman Fudge, Congresswoman Sutton, Congressman Ryan, down front, legislators Foley and Yuko and Celebrezzi and Patton and Hagan and who am I leaving out? Antonio. You have such a strong labor contingent in the House in Columbus and in Congress in Washington. But one of the things we all need to do is after this election, I'll talk about the election in a second, but after this election, every time you get a chance to organize, call on us to help you. You help us at election time. We want to help you organize because this country, we never save the middle class in this country. We can't save the middle class unless we have more people that are carrying a union card. You know what that means? And call on us to help you in organizing drive. That's what we want to do, and there's no better, whether it's working with Lichtenwald, whether it's working with DeBoni or Hoffa or Mixon or Nardi or Applegate or any of us, we want to work with you as your elected officials to strengthen the labor movement. All right. Now, there's not much left to be said today, frankly. Thanks to all these people already saying it. Hoffa took all my lines, so I'm not going to talk very long, but I am going to say a couple of things. You remember what happened in 2010. In 2010, all the talk was about jobs in the election. And, they were blaming Obama, they were blaming Strickland, they were blaming whoever they blamed. As soon as the election was over, what did they do? They went after collective bargaining rights, they went after voting rights, and they went after women's rights. Now, we won on collective bargaining rights. We got 61%. No, understand that never in the history of this country have collective bargaining rights ever been on a statewide ballot. Ever. First time, 2011 in Ohio, and we won by 22 points because we stood up, union and non-union alike stood up for the middle class. So we won, as President Hoffa said, we won on collective bargaining rights. We're winning on voting rights. We've pushed back. These people still, you know what they want to do. We're winning on voting rights, and we're going to win on women's rights and on women's health. So keep this fight up. It's so important for our future. Now, go back to 2008 just for a minute. I was with Bill at Toledo Labor Day this year. And I was walking down the street talking to some workers. They have an incredible Labor Day parade in Toledo. And I was walking down the street with some workers one guy I was talking to worked at the GM transmission plant. And we were talking about what he felt like in 2008. George Bush was still president. Presidential election was going on. And you can remember the fear in people's faces you could see, and the anxiety in people's voices that you could hear, because so many people thought their plant was going to close. If you not just if you were working at the cruise at the Chevy plant in Youngstown but if you were working in a supplier, you were working in a manufacturer, and you were driving trucks and taking these products back and forth, you knew the fear in people's voices and the anxiety on their faces. And you also knew that people like Mitt Romney didn't think the government should get involved. It was the headline in that Detroit newspaper he was talking about said, let Detroit go bankrupt, literally. That's what he said. Or drop dead Detroit, or however he said it. And you know what would have happened if we hadn't acted in the winter of 2009 when we stood up. And you know how many people are working now because of it. And let me just illustrate it with a story. The Chevy Cruze, in many ways, is the story of Ohio. The engine's made in Defiance, Ohio. The transmission comes out of Toledo, Ohio. The airbag components come out of Brunswick, Ohio. The steel comes out of Cleveland, Ohio. The aluminum comes out of Alcoa in Cleveland, Ohio. Some of the other steel comes out of Middletown, Ohio. The sound system comes from Springboro, Ohio. The seats come from Warren, Ohio. The stamping's done in Parma, Ohio. And 4,500 workers in Youngstown, Ohio make the Chevy Cruze. 4,500 workers. You can say a lot of things about politics. You can say a lot of things about government, but we all understand those are 4,500 workers there, and tens of thousands of workers all over this state and all over this country whose lives are better because of what politicians in Washington that believe in organized labor and fight for organized labor did. What Tim Ryan did, what Marcy Kaptur did, what Marcia Fudge did, what Betty Sutton did, what I did, what people that believe in the middle class, strengthen the middle class, what we did to save that industry and put this state back into business. Woo! And just look at, I don't want to bore you with numbers, but 2.5 years ago, when the auto rescue really started to take hold, when the Recovery Act really started to take hold, unemployment in this state was over 10.5%. Today, unemployment's under 7.5%. It's still too high. You got still too many friends and family members that are out of work or not working enough hours or not seeing their wages go up. But people are coming back to work. We're getting the economy in the right direction, and we can't turn back and go with this Romney-Bush economic policy. Back between 2000 and 2010 in our country, we lost 5 million manufacturing jobs. We lost 5 million manufacturing jobs between 2000 and 2010. That was a third of all the manufacturing jobs we had. 60,000 plants closed. Too many of them in Garfield Heights and Cleveland and Akron and Canton and Lorain and Elyria. 5 million manufacturing jobs, but since 2010 we've gained back 500,000 of those jobs. So as you go door to door today, as you talk to your friends and your neighbors and your family, you know that what we're doing together, this wouldn't even be close to happening if it weren't for the labor movement. You know what you've accomplished by doing this. And that's why you matter so much. That's why the work you do, as Tim Ryan said, as President Hoffa said, the work you do in the next 20 days is clearly going to keep this country moving in the right direction. And here's what I'll close with. You all know, you all individually, each of you, the fact that you're here, the fact you care about this, each of you knows more about politics, more about government, more about campaigning than anyone you know. You know more than anybody at your church. You know more than anybody in your workplace. You know more than anybody in your neighborhood. You know more than that right-wing nut job first cousin you have, because we all have one. You know more than anybody in your family about what we need to do to move this country forward. And don't underestimate your influence. President Hoffa said, you got 10 people, you got 100, whoever you can talk to, but you make it a project. You can think in your own mind. You go door to door today, knock on doors, make phone calls out of the Teamsters Hall, out of the teachers union, out of the building, out of the sheet metal workers hall, whatever. But also think about people you know in your family, in your neighborhood, in your workplace that will listen to you. They'll listen to you because you're smarter and you know more and you understand government and politics better than anybody else. You can sit down and show them you don't want these Bush-Romney policies that give tax cuts to the rich and trickle down, except they don't, to the middle class. You instead understand that you focus on the middle class and you grow the economy from the middle class out by the auto rescue, by trade enforcement, by standing up for community colleges the way the president has. You understand all that. So don't sell yourself short. Understand, I just want to keep saying this, understand how much more you know about all this, and don't ever underestimate the influence you can have. You can move those 2 or 3 voters a precinct just because of your family members and friends and people at work. So we're counting on you. We'll continue to have your back after we win this election, after President Obama wins, after I win. Call us to help you with organizing, because there's There's nothing more important in this country to sustain the middle class. I'll close with this. I wear a pen on my lapel that I've worn for about 15 years. It was given to me at a Labor Day, or at a Workers' Memorial Day rally in Lorraine about 1997 or 8. And it symbolizes a canary in a bird cage. The mine workers took the canary down in the mines. If the canary died, the mine worker had to get out of the mines. In those days, 110 years ago, the mine worker had no union strong enough to protect him, and they had no government that cared enough to protect him. A child born 100 years ago in this country had a life expectancy of about 45 years. We live 30 years longer today, not just because we've got better pharmaceuticals and heart transplants and those things. That obviously helps people. But we live 30 years longer because of this labor movement, because labor union members and people in their churches and ethnic organizations, civil rights activists, advocates for children, women's rights activists have stood up. We've passed Social Security and Medicare, and safe drinking water and clean air, and minimum wage, and workers' compensation, and civil rights laws, and protections for against child labor. We've done that. That's been the union movement that's done that. That's how we create a middle class in this country. That's what's under threat from Mitt Romney and my opponent in this right-wing crowd that wants to take us backwards. That's why we got to vote forward. That's why I'm counting on you. And I know people say I think they don't. People don't necessarily like my voice. I got kind of a funny voice, but understand this voice, whether you like it or not, this voice is going to keep speaking out strongly for workers and the middle class. Thank you.
This is the team. This is the team. Are we going to vote? Are we going to vote?